can't swim, so I drown in the liquor. Let's go bigger, go bigger.
2021, see me turning 21. Cause I want it and I seek it, I'ma get it all. Hidden secrets in the streets when I walk. I keep my hidden so I don't talk. It was a night in Brom. It was a night in Brom.
Hey, dude.
No Wi-Fi. Oh. Yeah, you know when you walk into somebody's house, the first thing you ask is,
what's the pin?
What's the password?
What's the password, bro? Like these days, you make friends because they have a hotspot.
Hey, don't.
Not because you actually like the thing.
Well, fantastic stuff. That is Lo-Fi, straight out of Japan by DJ Shu. Let me tell you something. The Japanese are dope in house music. Now, the Grindsmith is in the house, just like I told you guys. And yeah, today's show is about to stretch on. I got DJ Ned already waiting. We're going to do a dope hour session where I'm just going to be talking to Grindsmith for the next 30 minutes about everything he's done. Let me tell you something. I met him back in about 2010, 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, 10 years later. Right, so it's Thato Kekana. He's known more popularly by his hip-hop name, Mr. Grindsmith. He is a multi-skilled artist, entrepreneur from Kathlehong. K1, shout out, in the East Rand now. He's born in 1990 during a time of civil unrest. That's in the East Rand now. Thato represents the generation of South African youth who saw the end of apartheid, the euphoria that followed, and the current desperation the country faces, both economically and politically. Now, inspired by the tragedy of losing his mother at the age of 15 and on the backdrop of growing up in a community riddled with crime, violence, and drug abuse, K1, high orphan rates, and other ills that are prevalent in most of South Africa's townships, he picked up the love of writing and recording rap music and expressing his worldview under the stage name Mr. Grindsmith. Talk to me, King. I know you have had your songs played out.
Greetings in the studio. Thank you for having me, man.
King, it's been a decade.
It's been a decade, a clean decade. I was actually thinking about it the other day.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know that the first album I dropped, you took the pictures.
Yeah.
Capital East, that was in 2012.
Capital East.
Yeah, that was 2012, yeah?
For real.
It's been a journey, and it's an honor for me to be here and to connect with you like this on this platform. Thank you.
Shout out. And look, on Caxton Radio, it's all about more local, and I'm proud to say Caxton Radio is born in the East Rand, you know. We out in the East, you know, it's where the sun rises.
It's where the sun rises.
Let the people know who is Thato Kekana, aka Mr. Grindsmith.
Thato Kekana is a storyteller, a hustler. A hustler before a storyteller, but I don't know which came first nowadays, you know. But like, I'm an artist, I rap, I shoot, I tell stories through film, I'm a photographer as well. But an entrepreneur more than anything else. I think for as long as I can remember, I've been trying to, you know, find a way to make my living experience pleasant and also impart whatever I pick up to my neighbors. Because you know where we come from. I mean, I'm from the East. I'm from K1. If you know anything about K1, it's poverty, crime, drugs. You know, things change over the years, but like not at a rate that, you know, is decent or what humans can appreciate. So coming from that space, making it is important, you know, making something of yourself, finding ways to, you know, generate income in a productive manner, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go straight into it. For those that don't know the history of K1 and the hip-hop, you know.
Yeah.
Take me to the days of Styles, Styles, Pyramid Scheme, Rashid K.
You know,
for those that don't know.
Man, it actually goes way back further than that. I think if we're talking about Styles and Rashid, we're talking about the dudes that I used to listen to. You get what I mean? Before I actually got in a crew with them. You know? I was, what, 15, 16, so we're talking about maybe a good more than 10 years ago. You get what I'm saying? And that was also coming from the previous generations. I mean, K1 had crews like Dark Matter, who were the first generation of K1 rappers to go on Rap Activity Jam. You know, you had Zero BC, Carnivore, a lot of MCs that came out, you know, MCs that came out of that era. And they were also leading up from Abokaramo, which was a crew that's from way back, you know, sometimes credited as the first hip-hop crew in the country. So, like, the culture of hip-hop in K1 specifically, in the East Rand, but in K1 specifically, it's a way of life. It's like a religion, that side, you know what I mean? Like, you grow up, and when you hit your teens, you find yourself, most people, most males, you know, most of us young boys find ourselves where we don't have a stable home, or we don't have like proper guidance where we come from, so we end up on the corner, you know. And when we're on the corner, most of the time it's destructive things. That's where you get inducted into the jacking game and the drugs and all of that. But when hip hop is on the corner, it's like you get there and you get fascinated by these guys that are telling their stories, their problems and their challenges and their dreams through music. And that becomes like an institution that if you follow, kind of takes you off the street and saves your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's the and I mean, if you look at K1, it produces the best MCs.
I was about to say that.
Like, I mean, Questa's out of there, Reasons out of there, TLT's out of there, you know, man. Mr. Grindsmith's out of there. So you know what I'm saying?
Look, talking about the like the content that you have, you said you're telling us stories, in through different aspects of your art, like whether it's music, whether it's acting. What kind of stories can we expect, from you? What journey of those stories?
It's tied to the name. It's tied to the name, Mr. Grindsmith. You know, before Mr. Grindsmith, he was Fat Mouse. You know, Fat Mouse was the mouse that beat the trap and got the cheese, which is the metaphor. You know what I mean? The township is the trap, so the essence is to beat it, you know, and get the cheese. And Fat Mouse became Mr. Grindsmith when it became a science, when it became a profession. That this is what we do. We hustle and we break down the formula. We figure out the formula. How do we get this product moving? How do we get into that market? How do we build this company? How do we do that? And we distill that into lessons in music, you know, and we distill that into documentaries. 2018 I dropped a mixtape called Highly Classified, which was basically the audio version of my autobiography, you know, the things that I went through, from being exposed to the political violence, to the crime, and growing up in that, and then going to school and finding hip hop, and then becoming an entrepreneur. So I tell that story, and there's a documentary attached to that that's coming out ideally in 2020, God willing, you know, which is also telling the story of how K1 became a criminal capital. Like, it became the...
Let's run with that on Caxton Radio.
You know, yeah, definitely. I mean, Caxton is one of the platforms that covers, you know, we've got newspapers in
all over,
because we got Caxton, you know what I mean? So, yeah, no, definitely, you know, when things are lined up, I'll definitely be hitting you up for that. But it's basically a story about where the township came from, right? What the township went through and what the township produced and where the township is at. And the reason why the story is so centered on the township is because that's where most of us come from.
Exactly.
You know? A good chunk of the population is from the township.
60 to 80%.
You get what I mean? And you look at that population and how many of them are unemployed. You know, how many of them are educated and unemployed? How many of them are not educated? You get what I mean? How many of them are criminals? How many of them are addicted to drugs? You know, when you look at all of those things, you realize that somebody, like, it can't just go on like that. Somebody has to find a way, you know, even if it's just your own way, of how do you overcome those things, because we're all susceptible to them, you know. So how do you overcome those challenges, the unemployment problem, you know, taking your creativity and turning it into commerce. And then once you figure that out, then you've got something to impart, and then you can start trying to establish a culture. But before you can do that, people have to take a proper look at what's happening, you know. People have to acknowledge that townships produce criminals, you know, that we get addicted to drugs because we come from those environments, you get what I mean? So the documentary and the music and all of the work is around just highlighting that reality, you get what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then highlighting the challenges that create it, and also the solutions that we can develop from it.
Let's get to the challenges that we probably most of us knows that the challenges that are there. But just stipulate it maybe in your own way. You know, these kind of challenges that we actually face. You know, to find ourselves into that space. What kind of those challenges that you can explain to us?
Man, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. You know, like if I start from the beginning, we could go on for hours. We could go on for days. You get what I'm saying? But essentially, it starts with the environment, the space that you're in. It's a desperate space, you know. Income is not of the highest, you know. This country has a history of, you know, a certain population being marginalized. You get what I'm saying? So the income has always been low. And those people have to take care of large families for the most part. And then you've got issues like the violence and the political history that we have, and the violence that came with it, you know. and how that impacted people's psychologies and how they behave because of that. And you've got post apartheid into the democratic era. You've got an emergence of gangsterism and violence where, there's so many guns that were put there by politicians, right? And there's no money, like there's only so many jobs. So those people that used to be MK become gangsters, and then you see a boom in crime. You get what I mean? And gangsterism and SPV heists and ATM bombings.
Tell me something. And it's always been the case with your music is that you carry a lot of history from where you're from,
Yeah.
And musically with SA hip hop, I wouldn't say. I mean, I would say we've Sowetofied everything in terms of the industry, and people don't know that the Kathlehong carries a lot of history.
Yeah.
There's a sense that I've picked up, like K1 artists, some of them have taken way long to be in the game. Some of them have been in and out of the game. I'll tell you about Abo Sleek. It took your boy Quest about 10 years before you get recognized, and it seems as if it's part of that. I mean, it's also an oppression on its own that East Rand artists who are talented. I mean, that was cool, but from the East Rand. But we
how
see.
many of them break out?
You understand what I'm saying? And everything's about Soweto and everything.
Look,
and the East Rand is overlooked. What was your take on that?
I'm glad you asked that question because it's always been something that I like to address. You look at the nature of societies, right? There's always biases and hierarchies. You get what I mean? And in the Southern African context, especially as far as townships are concerned, townships don't exist for most people.
What do you mean?
Like for there are people who live in townships, and then there are people who don't know that they are townships. That's the differences that we live. Those are the different environments that you find in modern SA, where there are people who don't actually know what being in the township is like, right? And that's a very small population compared to the people who are in townships. But there's always that disconnect. And then you'll find that of those underprivileged areas, one or two will be highlighted because maybe one or two has icons coming from those places.
Yes, like you saw it.
Like you saw it, all the struggle icons are from there. So obviously there'll be a spotlight when those heroes become celebrated. You get what I mean? Tourists come in, investment comes in. But the actual underbelly of what South Africa is, the domestic workers, the taxi drivers, the cleaners, those people and their stories are not told and never get spotlight, never get any investment. Those
and they're not all from Soweto.
Yeah, they're not all, most of them are not from Soweto.
You're absolutely correct.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Even people that are in Soweto, a lot of them aren't from Soweto, they're from other neighborhoods.
True.
You get what I mean? So there's that thing that's pervasive in South Africa where certain, not just in South Africa, in the world, but in South Africa specifically, it's along racial and class lines, where certain places will be marginalized and certain places will get investment, you get what I mean, and certain groups. So the K1 story and the East Rand story is basically a story of the icons that came from the East weren't the favorable.
They weren't celebrated.
You're talking about the Chris Hangis, bro.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You're talking about revolutionaries, bro.
Yeah.
People that were willing to stake their lives for the lives of the masses. And there are other people who got celebrated who didn't do that. You get what I mean?
People died in the East Rand.
You get what I mean? People laid down their lives. That's why the East Rand has that history of violence that's entrenched. You know what I mean? So you've got that aspect of the East making it kind of marginalizable. The fact that it's the unpopular side of the revolution.
Oh, I see.
You get what I mean?
I see.
It's the truth, and the truth is not always pleasant. You get what
Do you
I'm
find
saying?
in the music industry, do you find the challenges are similar? That lyricism is gone now, in terms of storytelling, in terms of like, do you find that the commercial stream is now willing to listen to what's not genuine in terms of there's stories that are not told because we're sidelining certain truths and be like, we want to... Do you feel that this challenge is the same?
It's institutional, brother. It's institutional. It comes from the fact that even politically, certain people don't get heard. So you can't expect the radio stations to be doing what government doesn't do. You get what I mean? They're going to play what the sponsors and the advertisers, big money wants them to play. You get what I mean? So lyricism is making people think about their decisions, whereas there's music that'll make people buy, that'll make people party. So that's a dynamic that's pervasive everywhere, where there are humans, where there are people, because there has to be a bias, and one of the biases has to have an advantage, you get what I mean?
Of course.
So in that context, even on like getting music that talks about politics, that talks about politics or that talks about, the nature of violence and why why we have a high crime rate and a high murder rate. Songs that talk about why we have GBV, you know, and why we have this phenomenon of men killing women. You know, all of those things. There's music for that artists are making, but that's not the music that radio is going to play.
Damn, see you got a question.
True, man, true. Look, I would love to sort of take it from the fact that you are in now. You push this hip hop thing and you are where you are now. You know, what is it that you feel you still need in order for you to actually, you know, crack it into what you call the mainstream?
I love that question. I think that for the most part, what the definition of mainstream for me is being on every platform, you know. And what I know, I mean, I know a lot of successful people personally, you know, especially in the music space. And what I know is that for most of them, they've all had to, you know, do their legwork. Nobody just wakes up and is famous.
True.
You get what I mean?
True.
So
pay your price.
you gotta pay your dues,
Yeah.
and it's also fame is not necessarily the end goal, you know, because it doesn't mean that the more platforms I'm on, the more audible I am. You know, sometimes I might be there saying different things. I might be promoting, you know, chocolate or something else, you know,
Yeah.
and it won't necessarily relate to what the story is, but I'll be on
Absolutely.
those platforms, you know. So I think more than anything, it's just getting enough platforms and enough people that appreciate that music and appreciate the movement, you know, for them to be aware that we're out here. So it's just frequency of what we're already doing, you know, just scaling it up, doing it more systematically and doing it.
Put yourself in more platforms
Exactly.
that will promote that.
Exactly.
Do you think maybe the issue around those kind of platforms is it because of ownership when it comes to us? Is it because we don't own those platforms?
That's a good
and
question.
it becomes very like
That's-
sort of tight for us to actually, you know, even have an interview like this?
That's a beautiful question. I mean, I don't know if my brother knows, but like, since we separated back then after we did those projects, I went into the media space, you know.
Oh yes,
And
I
became a
remember
content
you.
producer.
Online,
and,
when online was still kind of starting out.
Starting out, you know.
Yeah.
And we actually the production house did a lot more. We did international news, linear television. You know.
Yes.
We did a whole lot of productions. But my experience in the media space, having worked in it, I understand the reality of ownership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I understand that at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about what is right or what should be put out there, but it's about what works for the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have to understand that it's a business. You know, everything's a business. Even religion these days is a business. You know, so you have to understand that you have to meet the bottom line. It has to be sustainable. It has to pay itself, and that is where the biases come in. That whoever has the pockets or whoever's bringing in the most money or whoever owns the platform has the final say on what goes on the platform.
What effect does that have? What effect have you found? I mean, you've been in the industry more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
What effect do you think that fact has on the development of not just the arts or music, of the music, of the arts in South Africa? You know, I had an artist who was here now talking about how South Africans don't embrace their work, but overseas our work is embraced. And if the bias starts from here, and with those type of challenges, what effect has it had on the growth, maybe let's say of your work or from what you've analyzed in terms of what effect do you think it has on the growth of the arts?
It's diabolic. It's catastrophic. What you find is that human beings generally resonate with what they're exposed to, right? That's human nature, right? And now, if radio and TV are influential platforms, if they're pushing a certain kind of content from a certain geographic or with a certain narrative, that becomes the status quo and the consensus amongst everyone. So if you have an alternative view, or you have a view like if you don't fit that model, if you're not on that wave, then your chances of getting the same exposure become reduced. You know, it becomes difficult. So essentially, that reality is the reason why we are not, as much as we have so many creatives, we are not considered a creative country. You know, we still looked at for mining and gold and that. But when you look at us, we're talented people. We got soccer stars, we got dancers, we got musicians, we got, you know, we export creatives, we export athletes. You know, So if there's and even art, even the sports is affected by the same, you know, essentially the same.
The same
issues.
bias that you're talking about.
Exactly, you get what I
Yeah.
mean. So this thing is structural, and the effect is universal. That certain opportunities for art to come out will never be realized because the platforms that have the power don't.
Tell me about social media.
Yeah.
You and I were doing online back in 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
We were already, people were like, what are you guys
what are you
doing?
guys
We're
doing?
like, we're putting this online, you know.
Yeah.
The transformation of social media and how in mainstream arts, how we're using it. I mean, I've got a Twitter account. I just don't go there because of that.
I follow your Twitter account, and I actually noticed a while back that you probably don't log in.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, because it's toxic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, the transformation of social media, because it is a platform that's there for everybody to use to blow up and make it. Do you find that in SA, in the entertainment industry, do you find we're using it for what it can make for us, or do you find, I find it as a battlefield for who's
Look,
better than who?
Social media is a double-edged sword, you know. It's good and bad, like everything. Everything has its pros and cons, right? The good is that social media kind of like nationalized communication. Everybody got a voice. On Facebook, on Twitter, everybody has a voice. If you've got a phone and some data, you know, you can put in your opinion too, you know. So that's the pro side of it, and information spreads faster that way. You know, unlike when the SABC could censor something and you'd never find out, you know, and you know, things like that. Social media, things break out, you know, and a lot of things get to media through social media. So it's kind of like feeding the narrative, you know. But now the negative side of it is how qualified is that narrative that's being produced by, you know, not necessarily considered thought, if you get what I mean. You'll find that people will jump on social media and you'll say something like, I hate pumpkin, right? And they'll be like, you're a veggie hater, you're against nature, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's actually a qualified opinion or a necessary opinion per se, you know. And it's not as if it's coming from a productive place or from an informed place, but you'll find that the energy that society
The
keeps,
momentum that goes with that.
you know what I mean?
Okay, okay.
So if society in behind closed doors harbors a negative sentiment for something, social media is where it's gonna show. You know, that's where it's gonna blow up. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best way, or that's the truth, or that's the you know, the right information to have out there. But that will be driven by the fact that so many people resonate with that message. You know, so it's double-edged in that way. And I think what you speak from in terms of Twitter specifically is that it's become a very hostile environment where it's about who can we bash, who can we kill.
My point is actually,
You know, and the thing is that comes from South Africa's joke culture. We are a nation of comedians. You know, we laugh at everything. We laugh at apartheid. You know, we make jokes about everything. You get what I mean? So that platform is kind of like taking on that character where South African Twitter is like a huge dissing fest. You know, and that becomes the ethos and the energy. So whenever whenever you come in there trying to be productive, you come off as too serious, or you fake woke, or this or that, you know, and you don't catch the wave. You get what I mean?
tell me something. Away from the serious stuff, Ahluga Media.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about that.
Let's talk that.
Tell me more about that. It's like a cocktail of like the arts, basically, like a whole multimedia cocktail. Tell me about Ahluga Media.
So, firstly, the word Ahluga means to differentiate or do differently. You know, so that's our market position.
I love
we are
that.
different, right? And what Ahluga Multimedia is essentially a network more than a company. So it's a network of creatives. I've got Louis Black in studio, who's an artist and also cameraman. I've got Andy Lo on the other camera, who's also a media professional and a manager. And they're freelancers, they've got their own grinds, but Ahluga Media consists of this kind of team, this flexible team. I got guys like Sharp Fede from the East Rand, who's also part of the team. And it's basically a loose network of creatives, right? And what we are trying to do, or what the essence of Ahluga Media is to take what we understand intrinsically about the culture, about the arts, and infuse that into what the corporate space and what big money is doing, you know. So to kind of like guide the media and guide the marketing and guide the sponsorship and guide the platforms that come about, you know, because we are practitioners of the arts and we understand it on an intrinsic level. But also at the same time, it was born from the realization that the media space, especially the digital media space, has been reactive for the most part. It reacts to something that happens on the ground, but it doesn't necessarily push something onto the ground. So it catches the wave, but doesn't influence the wave. It never starts the wave. And if you look at successful brands and companies that have done well globally, you'll find that they create waves, you know. I don't want to name brands because, you know, nobody's paying for advertising, you know what I mean?
But we're online, say it. I know Steve Jobs runs Apple.
Steve Jobs created a wave. He said,
you know what I'm saying?
He said, I'm going to create something that's spectacular.
Yeah.
It's not just
And why not speak about
you know?
brands that actually broke grounds?
Exactly.
Just so that we can.
You know, I mean, you look at Nike and how it fit perfectly with athletes, you know. It probably wasn't an athlete brand starting off. It was a fashion brand, but look at how strong it is with the athleticism.
Oh, that's the wave.
You get what I mean? That's the wave, you know. You look at, look, we can make a lot of examples. Just that not many are coming to mind right now. But the essence is that the media, if you look at news and TV, we shape culture, right? The media, you guys shape culture. You conscientize people of things. People know things through the media. They dress a certain way because of what's promoted. They speak a certain way because of what they're exposed to. So the media is an influential tool, you understand? But now what is it influencing? What's the influence that it's having? Is it promoting a movement away from expressing ourselves? Is it promoting a movement away from our creativity, our indigenousness, our authenticity? Or is it feeding that? Is it encouraging that? Is it exposing that?
I love that.
You know, so that's our position. We try to get the brands to speak the language of the people.
And how do you guys do that? Through what type of activities or what type of influencing? Or I want to go now. I'm talking about Ahluga Media specifically because I want to know. Yeah.
So, like I always say, we're a full-service multimedia agency. So if you think media, think us. We do photography, we do videography, we do TV production, we do music videos, we do commercials, we do web design, we do digital marketing. We run your ads.
How long has it been around?
The Ahluga Media is actually a young baby. It's only about to turn a year old, you know.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
But well done, King. I mean,
look, it comes off the back of having that industry experience. You know?
Of course.
So in a year, we've actually managed to do a lot. We've worked with Chinese a network, China Global. We've done a couple of business.
Are you
shows
serious?
with them, yeah.
Now you're talking about language.
You know, and we've
like
also,
you cross-border, you get globalization.
Yeah, look,
the reach.
It's fortunate that, you know, operating in the industry, you get to be exposed to different things, and then you can kind of like position yourself differently. So we've done a lot of big work. We've done a lot of local artist profiles, covering, you know, their interviews and their media appearances. We've covered a lot of shows. We've been working on content. We've produced a lot of content through the other platform, which is twistinet.com. That's the partner platform, the channel.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, so Ahluga Media is a video production company. It's a photography company, web design and digital marketing.
Multimedia.
Those are our fortes, you know. And also using the fluid network of having creatives and operating with creatives. We are always flexible and we can always jump onto, you know.
Taking from that sort of information you've mentioned before, that you when you're doing the hip hop, you realize, you know what, I need more, and then you started finding yourself within the media industry in terms of content production. Do you think around the industry in terms of the artists, do you think artists need that kind of information? Because I realize that most of the MCs, they just go in the industry just because I want to be an MC, or just because I want to be a DJ over behind the mic. Do you think it's very critical for them to sort of find themselves within that behind the scene type of activities in order for them to sort of sustain themselves within the industry?
Look, I say that if you're going to do anything, you need to do the best you can. And to do the best you can means that you need to know as much as you can. Because you can't do well if you don't know enough. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the being in the media space, whether as an artist or as a content producer or as a writer or as a cameraman. The essence is that you're in that space, you know. So you have to know everything that you can, and you have to master everything that you can. Not only does that give you a better understanding of how to position yourself if you're a musician or whatever, but it also gives you the ability to understand what other skill sets you can develop and utilize to sustain yourself and always be in proximity with what you're passionate about, you know.
Mr. Grindsmith, because of time frame, unfortunately, I don't like the word unfortunately, as we move on right along.
Yes, as we move right along.
How's about I invite you back again, I don't know when you're free, the following weekend or whatnot. I want to have these conversations more often because the platform is more local more often.
Yeah.
And these are the type of conversations that I believe can open up, not a can of worms, that's negative, but can open up dialogue for creatives.
Look, I'd love, if that's an invitation, I accept it.
It is.
Yeah, so I accept the invitation. I'd love to come through the side more frequently. I mean, I haven't been in the East Rand for a minute because I've been hiding back in the city of gold, you know?
For real,
yeah,
for
we've been
real.
chasing that goal. So it's lovely to be here, man. And whenever you guys can accommodate me here, I'll be
I think
here.
let's do it again next weekend.
No, definitely.
Maybe next weekend, Saturday.
No doubt.
I mean next weekend, Sunday.
Yeah.
Where we sit and we actually, I believe we can unpack a lot. I mean, this is our industry,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and
definitely.
we need to
more of
unpack
this.
it,
We need
exactly,
to-
because there's a whole lot of things happening with the industry. People don't get paid for their arts.
Exactly. You know?
And
And, hey, there's a lot.
artists
there's
in
a
South
lot.
Africa are always complaining.
There's a lot that goes
They
on
don't
in
get
the
paid for the work
industry,
they
yeah.
do.
You know?
But somebody gets paid.
Yeah, somebody gets the money.
You know what I'm
Look,
saying?
Somebody gets the check.
Why don't we unpack that?
Yeah, I'd love to unpack
And have a
that.
conversation
I'd
about
love to
that.
unpack that, you know,
Why
because
not?
we've got references for those scenarios. That
But
have
there's
happened,
plenty.
You know,
Hashtag
so, yeah.
antuvatiswa shame
You
you
know.
pay to
Yeah, no.
What do you think, Sia?
Look.
In closing.
In closing, like you're saying, but I don't want us to run away from the quality as well
Yeah.
that we need to actually bring as well.
Yeah.
I feel as we work on our crafts, you know, we need to sort of monitor our quality, and then it must be supported with a lot of, you know, sort of supported documents that are gonna allow people to engage with us, not take us for granted. Because I
Exactly.
think we do have this quality, but it's not supported somewhere. It's either your paperwork is not done well, or
Look,
maybe something else
There's
is not done
there's
well.
there's levels of gaps. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I think I can testify to this. You know, for me to get into the media space, I wouldn't have gotten here if I wasn't driven by music, right?
Yeah.
But getting into the media space has made me realize so many gaps that I had in my music space.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's always that at play.
Yeah.
And to have the platforms, to have the conversations, to document, to throw the ideas out, to question the practices is the beginning of how we can find a solution.
That's what's up.
Ladies and gentlemen, out here on Caxton Radio, more local, more often. I wish we had more time. Tato Kekana, Fat Mouse, Mr. Grindsmith. Let me know where the people can get hold of you on social media before I let you go, King.
The handle is the same at Mr. Grindsmith, so that's MrGrindSmith, Grindsmith. That's on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Ashluga Media, www.ashlugamedia.com, and we at Ashluga Media on all social media platforms.
I'm loving it. Ladies and gentlemen, this conversation needs to happen though. How's about you come back next week, Sunday?
Guaranteed.
For a whole hour and a half. How's about
Guaranteed.
that?
Guaranteed.
Let's do this. Let's build something. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Tato Kekana, Mr. Grindsmith. Let me tell you something.
Thank
We
you
come
for
far,
having
we're
me.
going far. King, shout out to anybody special.
Shout out to everybody. Everybody's special, you know. Shout out to everybody. Everybody on the hustle. Everybody chasing their
Except for
dreams.
Claudim Twaneng
Man, he's also God's child. Shout
for
out to
killing the
everybody.
SABC.
You know, and look, you might find that Saudi is a smaller problem and there's a bigger problem.
Those are things we need to unpack.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Ladies and
But shout
gentlemen,
out to everybody who's on their grind. You know, God got you. Keep
for
going.
real. Right, guys, it's about that time you've been waiting for. I got DJ Nade in the hazel. Right, Nade, what you got for us today?
I'm gonna take you guys back to the 90s.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're going all the way until 6:30 today. It's a special for you guys. It's an hour of DJ Nade. All the way until 6:30. I hope you guys is ready though.
Yeah, man.
2021, see me turning 21. Cause I want it and I seek it, I'ma get it all. Hidden secrets in the streets when I walk. I keep my hidden so I don't talk. It was a night in brown. It was a night in brown.